I'm going to be doing a video on fake Waterloo medals. The reason why I'm doing this video is because these medals are still after today being sold. They're not being sold as copies or replicas. They're being sold as original medals. I also discovered one of these die-struck forgeries on a dealer's website. I'll talk about that later. I am very familiar with these die-struck forgeries because I purchased two of these medals 18 years ago. I purchased them both from the same individual. They were sold to me as original medals. One was named the 2nd Life Guards, and one was named to the 30th Regiment. My knowledge at the time, when I started collecting British medals, was look at the obverse, look at the reverse, look at the edge of the medal. Has it been renamed? Is it engraved? Or is it impressed? If it's engraved, is it the correct style engraving for the period? If it's impressed, are the letters the correct style for the period? So that's what I'd look at. So I'm going to go over just really quickly how I discovered that I had purchased two die-struck forgeries. But before that, I have a printout here of two Waterloo medals, the original on the left and the forgery on the right. So take a look, just take a look at those two images, and I'm going to go over those quickly. As I was saying, I purchased two medals. I decided to have research done on the one of the 2nd Life Guards. So I took the information I had on the medal, sent the information to a researcher in England, got the research in the mail. There was a note from the researcher letting me know that John Hurd, 2nd Life Guards, was wounded 5 times in the Battle of Waterloo. So the medal was named to John Hurd. Right when I read that, something was not right because that medal would have been worth a lot more than what I paid for it. So something didn't seem right. So I had to have this medal authenticated. So what I did next is I had photos taken of the medal. I had 2 sets of prints made. One set of prints I sent to a dealer in England, and the other set I sent to Spinks in England. So I got a response back from the dealer first, and he has actually shown the photos to some other dealers, and they were all concerned about the naming on the medal. They didn't say anything about the obverse, the reverse, the die characteristics. They were concerned about the naming. So let me show you the photos, what they're looking at. So here's the obverse. You can see here, they chemically aged it and then cleaned the metal to make it look old. So here's the reverse. Same thing. Chemically aged it and then cleaned it to make it look old. Let's look at the naming. So here's what I was looking at when I purchased the medal. As you see these, they call them stars, symbols here. These are correct. These will be before the name and after the regiment to fill in the blank spaces. So that looks correct. Let's look at the lettering. That looks correct. Those look like large and pressed serif capitals, as they should be. So here's what the researchers, or sorry, the dealers were concerned about. Here we got Hurd John. They've never seen a Waterloo medal named with the surname first, then the Christian name. It'll always be the Christian name, then surname, so it's reversed. Not right. Also, the regiment they had an issue with. Here's the 2nd Life Guards. They've never seen a medal named to 2nd Life Guards in this way. It'd be 2nd Regiment Life Guards. So that's another issue. And then here you can see the stars or symbols at the end of the regiment, as should be. So now I'm sitting here with this medal. Got more issues, more problems with it. So short period after that, I get an email response from Spinks. I get a number to call. So I call the number and I get in contact with a John Hayward. He actually wants to see the medal. I let him know that I have another medal also. I have 2 of them. So he says, send them both in. I'll take a look at them. So I pack them up, mail them off to England. About a week later, I get a call from John Hayward. He's let me know that both of them are die-struck forgeries. These medals have been around for a while. And then he was explaining to me how they manufactured them and that they actually have a machine to impress the details on the edge. So my conversation with John Hayward I learned a lot about metal collecting and a lot about these die struck forgeries. So what I'm going to do now is go over these images here and show you how to identify one of these die struck forgeries. So here you've been looking at these two images here. And by the way, this metal here was the other metal that I sent in to be authenticated. This is the metal to the 30th Regiment. So they had taken a photo of it, and they did an article on their website on fake Waterloo metals. And this, I printed this out years ago from their website. So this metal actually went to some good use for the article. So you've been looking at this two images here. And look at the detail of the profile here. Look at the profile here. Here you have George P. Regent. This is not the Prince Regent. Not even the same. The profile is totally different looking, because when they produced these dies were laser cut by machine. So you have laser cut dies. There's no way that a laser is going to be able to cut out the dies and get that detail like the original. If you look at the original, when these dies were produced, they were hand engraved by a master engraver. So you got hand engraved dies, machine laser cut dies. So they're not going to look the same. So let's start at the top of the metal and work my way down here. I'll work my way down and show you what to look for to identify one of these forgeries. So let's look here first. The first hair to look at is a hair. If you look at this hair here, you should be able to count that hair. Look at the original. How it looks like flowing hair. Here you got individual strands. You can pretty much count them. Shouldn't be able to do that. Just by this area right here, we know that this is a die struck forgery. So if you ever come upon one of these metals and you look at this area here, die struck forgery. Let's work our way down to the other area to look at. This area here, the ear. There are all kinds of issues in here. We don't have enough time to cover all these areas. So let's look down here at the ear. Look at the shape of the ear. This ear here. If you look at the shape of the other ear, totally different ear, not the same. Die struck forgery, just by looking at that ear. One other area we could look at is a neck. Look at this crease right here in the neck. That shouldn't be there. Not on the original. There's like a crease here. Let me show you that on another die struck forgery. See that crease? That just really sticks out. I mean, you can spot this without even having a loop. Spot that crease. That's not right. Let's look at the other areas I was talking about here and here on the design. You're going to need a loop to see those areas. You got to remember this metal is 35 millimeters round. So you're going to need a loop to see these little areas in the design to pick out these forgeries. So we went over the three areas here and the ear, up here the ear, and then the neck area. Those will give this metal away as a die struck forgery. So that is the obverse. Let's look at the reverse now. The reverse is pretty simple. You got Seated Victory. Go straight for the head of Seated Victory. Look at the profile of the forgery compared to the profile of the original. Not even the same. Can't even compare. You got all this detail, no detail. So that just gives away right there. Seated Victory. Look at the head. Not even the same. That's because die struck. These are die struck. The dies I used were laser cut. These dies were engraved by master engraver, and that can look the same. So go straight for the Seated Victory's head, and that will let you know die struck forgery. Let me show you a blow up of that, so you can see that on another Waterloo metal. Here's another original Waterloo metal. There's the original. Look at the profile. Look at the detail. Let's look at the forgery. No detail. There's that chin sticking out. Not even close. Die struck forgery. So that's the reverse. The same as the obverse. The reverse has all kinds of problems here too. We don't have enough time. It takes too long to go over all these issues. There's too many of them. So go straight for Seated Victory's head. and you'll be able to identify die-struck forgery with that head there. Let's talk about the naming now. How they name these metals up. Let's talk about the original first. How they would do this. So they had to make letters and numbers to be able to impress the details on the edge. So how would they do that? All these letters and numbers would all have to be hand chiseled by hand. There's no other way of doing it. They have to hand chisel them. They have to be handmade. So if they have people producing and hand chiseling these letters, if someone's there, say someone's chiseling A's, they have a person sitting there and he's just chiseling A's. Every A is going to look different because they're done by hand. The same with the B's and all the other letters and numbers. They're all going to look different. So they get all their letters and numbers all hand chiseled, ready to go, and they impress the details on the edge of the metal. If you look at an original metal and you have the same letters on the edge, those letters are going to look totally different because they're all hand done. Let me show you on my iPad. I have a photo here on my iPad of an original Waterloo metal, the naming, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So here's an original. If you look at these two O's, they're totally different, which they should be because they're done by hand. If there's another P, E, or R on the detail somewhere on this metal, they would look different too because they're done by hand. They're going to look different. So that's the way they did the original metals. So now let's talk about the forgery, how they did the forgery. They got to do the same thing. They got to figure out, how am I going to name the details? How am I going to do the details on the edge? So let's look at the lifeguard's photo here and look at the lettering. If you look at these letters, they just look way too neat. They don't look like they're hand done. They look too neat. I assume they use the same process as they did when they made the dies. These dies are laser cut. They'd have to laser cut these letters. So they get all their letters and all their numbers together, laser cut them all, get them all together. And you got to remember, they also have a machine. So they use their machine and they impress their details on the edge of the forgery. If you look at a forgery and you look at the edge of the forgery, the details on the edge, and you see the same letters, they're going to look exactly the same because it's done by a machine. If the machine is programmed to cut a letter out, say an A, all those A's are going to look the same. So whatever letter they're cutting out, they're all going to look the same because they're programmed by a computer. The computer's going to cut them all the same. This metal here, as I was saying, is to the other metal I purchased, to the 30th Regiment. And I remember when I had this metal, I'd look at the letters and they all look the same. The two O's in the foot look exactly the same. So that's the lettering part of that. The lettering we're talking about on the edge of the metal. So let's talk about, I recently discovered another die-struck forgery on the internet, and I was looking at the details and naming on it. I was very surprised when I discovered this. Look at the letters here. These letters should look the same, but now they're looking different. I think they clued in to what they were doing wasn't right, so now they're trying to make the letters look more hand done to make them look different. Let's show you the O's. Same thing with the O's. Look at the O's. Looking different now. I think that they clued in and that their letters were looking too uniform and not hand done. So they kind of switch it up and are trying to make them look like the original, but it still doesn't work because if you look at these letters in the naming, they still look too neat. They do not look hand done. So it doesn't matter what they do. They're trying. They're not going to be able to make it look right. Not going to be able to make it look right. Let's say they perfect the lettering on the edge and make it look perfect. The letters look exactly like an original Waterloo metal. All hand done. Looks like the original. Still won't work because all we got to do is go to design on the obverse and reverse and look at these areas and we know it's a die-struck forgery. So they can keep doing what they're doing. It's not going to work. I think these metals have fooled a lot of people over the years because they look at the details on the edge and it looks authentic and original to them. But it's not. you have to look at the design also. You cannot count on just the naming on the edge. You have to look at the design. You have to look at the obverse and reverse, and you got to look at these areas here and look at the detail of the design. If you do that, you will spot these die-struck forgeries. So that was the obverse, reverse, and the naming. So let me talk about the metal that I discovered on the dealer's website. So here's the actual metal. It was on the dealer's website. This is on his website. I discovered this metal probably about 9 months ago. And right when I discovered it, I emailed the dealer and let him know that this metal he had on his website was a die-struck forgery, because I had 2 of these years ago when I dealt with them. And I got an email response back, and he didn't want to hear it because he pretty much said that he purchased this metal from a reputable auction house and he was going to look into it. Well, I guess it didn't happen, because that metal stayed on his site for a long time after that. It just came off his website probably about a month and a half ago. So he didn't want to hear it. So this metal here, let me show you the reverse of the metal. Here's the reverse of the metal. We know this is a forgery. Look at the City of Victory's head. No detail, forgery. This metal was for sale on his site for 2,150 pounds. The other metal I was showing you with the naming on it, the edge details, that forgery was for sale for 1,990 pounds. The reason I'm using pounds, because they were being sold in England. This was on a dealer's website, but he pulled it off his website. The other one, I don't know what happened to it. I think it just kind of got pulled too. But that's a lot of money to be paying for a die-struck forgery. So that's why I'm doing this video, because these metals are still floating around out there. They're out there floating around still. And remember the areas. If you look at these areas here, you will spot these forgeries fairly quickly. So that's about it. I just want to show you a photo. I actually purchased the Waterloo metal, an original one. Finally purchased one 3 years ago. So I have a photo of the obverse and reverse, because the metal is too small to show, because I was saying it's 35 millimeters round. So here's the obverse of the metal that I purchased about 3 years ago. Great looking metal. This image is off DNW's website, because this sold at an auction about 3 years ago, and this is the image off their archives. So this is the metal here I purchased. Nice detail. The metal condition is good, very fine. It's named to a sergeant, 3rd Battalion Grenadier Guards. Very happy with it. Nice detail for Waterloo metal. So that's the obverse. Let's look at the reverse. Here's the reverse of the metal. Nice detail. Like I say, very happy with it. Finally have an original Waterloo metal after dealing with those 2 die-struck forgeries 18 years ago. It's nice just to have one in the collection, because these metals are expensive. So that's about it. Remember, do your research. And if you run into one of these forgeries, you know what to look at now. Look at these areas here, look at the design, and you will spot these forgeries. So do your research, and good luck out there.